just right before the deadline. I didn't realize that there was a January 31st deadline of getting a bill submitted to the state legislature. Well, we talked with his assistant Janet, and I said, we have this thing. We're trying to. My husband works with the bus, the school buses as the safety coordinator, and so we have been made aware of the fact that you've got drivers going out and they can't use GPS because they're not allowed to have their phones out and things like that because of state law, and it makes it very hard because they go out with a piece of paper, trying to find kids when you've got a sub driver and they're trying to look at a piece of paper and drive a bus sometimes in a rainy, cold morning, dark morning. It's very unsafe. And so it's something that was just kind of shouldn't have gotten to that point. You know how sometimes you'll pass a law and then there's a repercussion that you don't think about. That's kind of what this was. And so they've been taking care of that in our state legislature. So we want to definitely thank him for that. But again, anticipating Senator Kerry Roberts sliding in here in just a moment. While we're waiting on him, I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you went out and worshiped. If you did not, find a church family to be a part of. I, have got so many that I'm a part of. I've got my family up at the Madison Church of Christ that I've been with since 1989. They are my family. And then I got my crazy cousins up here at Epiphany Baptist that I hang out with, and also hang out with them over at Bethlehem Baptist as well. And my friend Rachel Culver, we've been reading through the Bible, and the scriptures for today, what is today's date? The 27th. So the 27th, we are still in Numbers. We are in Numbers 33 through 34, and we're doing Psalms 51. So we're in Numbers 33 through 34 and Psalms 51. And I have to tell you, I'm not up to date. I'm pretty much up to date on Numbers because I've been doing it audibly and just doing my Bible app that I have. I use Bible Gateway. And they have this really cool thing in Bible Gateway. You can go in and you can hit the dramatized version, and it makes it, especially Leviticus and Numbers, makes it a little bit more interesting. Numbers definitely has some more interesting things than Leviticus. Leviticus is hard to get through. I know there's some good stuff in there. The Bible scholars out there are saying, "Oh, but you just don't know what you're missing if you haven't dug deep into Leviticus." And I know there's some all Scripture, is God breathed and helpful for teaching, and so I encourage you to definitely get in it. If you've never read through the Bible in a year, do that, and you can start today. I was talking with my friend Gwen Harder. She was in on Friday, and she was with me at the Bethlehem Baptist, the women's kickoff for the reading through the Bible for a year. And so at the same time, they were also kicking off the Gospel on the Ground study that they're doing with Christy McClellan. And if you have, I can't say enough about, there's so many people I wish you would listen to. Christy McClellan is one. Bobby Davis out in Cookeville at Life Church is another one. All of our preachers, my preacher Russ is awesome over at Madison, and there's just so many great preachers out there. David Evans here locally, love him. Love listening to my friend Bill Jones too. He and I are both kind of coming to the table as, okay, well, we never went to seminary, but man, we sure are digging through it right now, and we're learning an awful lot. But Bill's one that you can reach out to, and he'll send you an email where he goes through difficult scriptures. I'm encouraging him. He needs to write a book. He needs to put all these things he's been putting into email into a book. But there's a lot of people who I'm studying with. I call them all my professors. Tom Hayden up at Northfield. Oh my goodness, there's so many. Jason Ball at Centerpoint. Again and again and again. So many. And I can't say enough about digging through it. But the thing that I have neglected to do, and I've tried to do several times, is to read through the Bible in a year. And when you don't do that, you miss so many things. And I just, the story of Balaam's donkey, okay? I'm reading through that, and it was so weird. I even called my mother and I said, we always talked about how Balaam's donkey talked to him, but did you ever really look at the character of who Balaam was? And he was a false prophet. And when you really dig into his story and learn more about his story, and the fact that they even refer back to him out of the New Testament, it's fascinating when you look at his story and how he prophesied about Christ. It's just bizarre how God used some people. And I'd never really delved into the story of Balaam. And so I'm reading through, or I'm listening through Numbers, and you know how God will just have things that will just kind of fall. Well, this morning I listened to of course, I was at Madison yesterday and listened to Russ's sermon. Then I listened to Bobby Davis this morning. And then I listened to Jason Ball from Centerpoint. And guess what he was preaching on? Balaam and the donkey. And I just thought, oh, that's interesting. What a coincidence, right? I don't believe in coincidence. But anyway, I just encourage you to get into Scripture with us and get into Numbers with us, because it is a good read. And today is the February 27th. So we are in Numbers 33 through 34 and then Psalms 51. And then tomorrow we'll be in 35 through 36 and then Psalms 52. And I cannot imagine what has happened to Senator Roberts. And if you're trying to message me on the phone, Senator, my phone is what we're using, so I don't know what's going on. I'll go ahead and pull the phone line up. Maybe he can call us. I don't know if he can possibly do that, but we are missing. He is MIA right now. He is due to be in here, so you got me, guys. Bill, if you're out there and you want to come on in, well, come on in and we'll talk, because I don't know what's happened to the senator this morning. I know I messaged him yesterday, reminding him of the schedule. But he had said that the only thing he told me is that he was going to have to leave just before the top of the hour. So hopefully he'll come on in here. He could be caught in traffic. You know how those things go. But we'll just, and I'm not finding the phone line here. We'll figure this out in just a minute. But hopefully, you'll hang out with us and continue to join us here. We're going to hopefully hear from Senator Kerry Roberts here in just a little bit. What do we try to do here at Ebenezer Broadcasting at WSGI is to keep you informed about the things that are going on in our community. And it's fascinating to me, the things that I've learned. I've said this often, that I have learned so much and have been so thankful for the experience of sitting at these airways. And if you are listening, Kerry, and you want to try to call in, the number is 615-212-5534, 615-212-5534. And I'll tell you, we'll try to see if we can get that. We were having problems with incoming calls the other day whenever I had Omar Hamada on. So we'll see if it works, but hopefully we'll hear from Senator Roberts here soon and figure out what's going on with him and get him on the air. But as we continue on the show this morning, I hope that you're, again, checking out a church. If you have not found a church to be a part of, don't stop looking. Don't stop looking, because it is such a wonderful fellowship. We had house church last night at my house, or we call it care group or small group, whatever you want to call it. But we got together at my house. We're trying to get into a rhythm of doing that once a month on the fourth Sunday of the month. If you'd like to join us 5 to 7, now my little house will get crowded really quick, but as the weather warms up, we can certainly spill out into the barn and have a good time of worship there. But if you have not found a church home to be a part of, I cannot say enough about it. I told a little story about my mother's friend. She's up in Michigan, in the Detroit area, and they had some ice and the power went out and she was in a mess. And it was her pastor that came over and helped her because her son, it was a little too far and he couldn't get to her because of the ice and those kinds of things. And story after story about how the church circles around people and they're there for them, and they're the ones that come in and really make a difference when you need them. So I cannot say enough about that. And if you have not found a church family, by all means find one. I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman in Walmart, of all things. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but he was looking at something in my grocery cart, and he asked about it, and it turns out it was something to do with communion. And we got to talking about communion and Jesus, and had a little gospel meeting right there in Walmart for about 10 minutes until I just finally had to go, but because I had something on the schedule I had to get to. But never turn away from those opportunities just to be Christ to the people who come in your path and to share the word. We also had a situation just recently at our church, and we're still not sure this is the case, but we had somebody from the homeless community that joined us for a lesson the other night, and we talked with them, and right after services, there was a pedestrian that got hit out in front of the church and killed. And we're not certain, but we believe it was that gentleman. Where we've been trying to confirm that. I guess my point is, you just never know in your interactions with those who come around you if you're going to be the last opportunity that they have to talk about Jesus and make sure everything's right. So just in everything that you do, remember that you're the hands and feet of Christ, and we've all been called to go out there and do the things that God has called us to do. And there he is, all dressed up, ready for the legislature, and come on in here. And I guess I could have gone ahead and done my commercials, but I was kind of vamping.
I have a bone to pick with you.
Oh no, what?
You didn't check your text messages at 6:30 this morning.
What did you say? What did you send me?
I'd be late.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I've been listening to you, and
Okay.
I cannot dial.
Okay.
You're giving me the phone number. I'm just sitting here laughing. It's like, okay, so we passed a law saying you can't.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I apologize.
I'm sorry to you.
No, I apologize,
you
but
didn't
I
get that,
just,
but-
yeah, because I'm a long time. I need to remember to do that right before I get on the air. Is just check the.
Well,
the
I did
text.
it early because I know you use your
Yeah.
phone for the.
Yeah, I
broadcast.
apologize.
Well,
Well,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
so the senator let me know he was going to be late, and I did not look at my text.
You know, and this whole thing about today, we've got just to jump right in, we've got Tennessee State University Board of Trustees up for sunset today, and I don't know if you've been following that at all, but it's a mess, and so we're all having to. I'm leaving here to go do that, and we're all trying to get on the same page as to you know, how that, hopefully that'll go well. But do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I know that that they have to come before the board, and they're audited and all these things, and the details no, but I do know that has been an issue, and it's not gone well. It's not looked good.
Well,
There's been a lot of things.
So the two big issues this week are the abortion calendar, you know,
Right.
being in judiciary on Tuesday, and TSU's sunset today. So the long story short on TSU is they're one of the 265 entities that are under, you know, the Government Operations Committee.
Go ahead and push your screen onto your microphone. It's about to
coming
fall
off?
off. Yep, it's about to fall off. There you go.
Okay. So they're one of the 265 entities that you know we have legislative oversight of, and so. You know, it's a board of trustees, not school. That's an important distinction, and that gets blurred here because TSU is not going away. You know, that's just the implication that what do you do if you're a student, and is there going to be a school next year? And that's just nonsense. That's total nonsense. It's the board of trustees that is under review, and are they managing the university the way they're supposed to? Or are they providing management oversight like they're supposed to? Well, they had a pretty scathing audit. And then on top of that, there was all this stuff in the news about students who came, they didn't have housing, they didn't get their scholarships, and all this other kind of stuff. And so we were supposed to hear them, I think, back in September or October, and we just kept punting because, I'll be very, very candid. If you have a bunch of middle-aged white people on a committee determining the fate of a black institution with a black board of trustees, nobody wants to be perceived as being a racist, right?
Right.
And so what really kind of bothered me were people saying, well, if this was UT Knoxville, we wouldn't be having this. No, if it was UT Knoxville, we would have already voted to vacate the board and put a new one in and so on. But we're trying to be super sensitive. We realize the time that we're in right now, and we're trying to give every opportunity for correction. So by in effect, by punting, it's given Tennessee State University an opportunity to respond to the scathing audit, to put corrections in place, and so hopefully, you know, cooler minds can prevail. So if anything, it's just the opposite. So I thought things were pretty much headed in the right direction. Then last week, the Education Committee had a hearing on their housing and you know, scholarship, and I have not made any public comment, and I'm sure somebody's going to pick up on this, and I'll probably be you know, get criticism for it. But the hearing was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster, and I mean, you've got a board member testifying about, you know, Jim Crow and living under Jim Crow and not wanting to go back to Jim Crow, and I just, there was no place for that, none. That was not what that was about. And if you, and it's great that you've solved, in theory, or so they say, they've solved all these problems, but who is responsible for letting those problems happen in the first place? And so, the taxpayers of Tennessee, by and large, fund every one of our universities, and of course they get federal money, and I understand that, but we have an obligation to the taxpayers of Tennessee to make sure each one of these universities is well managed, and it begs the question, well, if you were not prepared for the previous crisis, are you going to be prepared for the next one? It's great that you fix things, and I applaud you for that. That's a big deal, and I want to recognize that. I want to acknowledge it. But are we going to be in the same situation a year from now because we just have poor leadership? So those are the questions that have to be weighed. And it may be that the answer is great. It's a wake-up call. We're all on the same page. Let's move forward. Mm-hmm. It may be that, we don't have confidence in you. And where I was prior to Thursday is I thought, hey, we're headed in the right direction. And then Thursday's hearing was just really set me back. And then so we have it again this morning. We'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. And this is where being a legislator is tough, because not everybody gets accurate information. There's a lot of, I guess the word for the last 2 years is misinformation, right?
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of misinformation that was being put out. So what we're doing today at 9 o'clock is we're having the sunset hearing for the TSU Board of Trustees. And hopefully it will be an opportunity for it is an opportunity for the comptroller to present the results of the audit, and an opportunity for TSU to respond. And could it go off the rails? Yeah, it could. Should it go off the rails? No, it doesn't need to. But we'll see what happens. Mm. So I'm not chairing this committee. It's this is a joint committee. It's a subcommittee. And so even though Chairman Reagan and I chair the respective House and Senate committees, this is a subcommittee, so somebody else is chairing. So from my perspective, this is being chaired by the House, and so I'm on the committee. Dr. Kumar's on the committee, but I kind of feel like, I'm sort of, it's out of my control, what happens. So.
But it's going to be highly attended, and I imagine, don't you think? I mean, there's going to be a lot of interest.
It's kind of hard to say, because I think the word got back pretty quickly that Thursday didn't go well. Mm. And so, packing the room and the presentation, the response of the administration was more, in my opinion, was for the benefit of the people in the room and the media, not the committee members. Mm-hmm. And that was a mistake.
Right.
I mean, it's just a strategic error. I mean, you're sitting here fighting for your life, trying to figure out what you're going to do, and mm-hmm. and you've got to answer to these findings that are not very positive, and so and you're trying to convince people that, hey, we've got a handle on it, and I get all that. I mean, mm-hmm. what would you do, right? You want to present it in the best possible light. You want your board members to be there, your alums to be there, everybody stand up in support saying, hey, we got this, we're headed in the right direction. I totally get that. But it was just the wrong time in the wrong place. It mm-hmm. kind of came across like a pep rally, not I don't know.
No, I get it. I get exactly what you're saying, and it's smoke and mirrors a lot of the times to try to divert from what's really going on. Let's make a spectacle instead of actually answering the question, and that's what we have so often. It's one of my greatest regrets, having been a part of the media for so long, and still am. And that's one of the things I've talked to my students all the time about this, how that's something that anybody in the media it's ethically. You're responsible for truth and not sensationalizing things that shouldn't be sensationalized to push an agenda. And that's unfortunate that it happens far too often.
Spin, we talk about political spin, but mm-hmm. there's all kinds of spin. I mean, marketing is just the way of the world today, right?
Right.
And so why do we buy what we buy? Because somebody spends it, right? They tell us why we need it. Why do we do what we do? There's a lot of spend. There's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of emphasis on manipulating how people view things and how they think. And there's no more. I mean, we're all familiar with Madison Avenue, the traditional, label for the marketing firms, right? I guess they're all spread all over America now. But a lot of energy has gone into why you buy that computer, why you pay. I mean, you've got a Mac of some kind, and if you're hard pressed on a budget, you can buy basically the same thing from somebody else with no name on it. And yet, I have an iPhone, you have an iPhone. Why do we do what we do? Well, because there's a great deal of marketing that convinced us that one is better than another. And maybe it is. Maybe it is. Yeah. Well, what people don't realize is that for all of those billions of dollars spent trying to convince you, and one of my friends said years ago that profits are in marketing. Profits are because of marketing, right? You make your profit because of marketing. What people don't realize is that there are firms in Washington, D.C. that are political firms that are making all the effort to how you think about LGBTQIA+, how you think about same-sex marriage, how you think about abortion, how you think about Joe Biden, how you think about Donald Trump, how you think about the border, how do you think about the national debt, how do you think about Ukraine? There are firms that are right now having meetings talking about how we're going to spend, what are our talking points, where do we need to put pressure. This part of the country is not on board. How do we do that? They're thinking about the 2024 presidential election, and I've grown maybe cynical about the national political process because it's no longer about the truth. It's about winning, and it's about winning at all cost. And let me tell you, you mentioned Bobby Davis. Bobby Davis said yesterday, which you heard this morning. It's not a political figure that's going to save us, is it?
No.
Yeah. And I read this morning, what part of what I was reading was, governments impose their will from the top down. Kingdoms of the earth impose their will from the top down. The kingdom of heaven, changes hearts through humble, service. It's from the ground up. And unfortunately, for those of us that are on the left or on the right, what we want is the government to force our view on everybody else.
Everybody needs to hear what Bobby had to say yesterday.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was spot on.
He was rhyming like only Bobby Davis can rhyme.
If you haven't discovered him, you know what you're missing.
Here's the thing to do when you're listening to Bobby Davis. Have a piece of paper and a pencil, and every time he does an alliteration or a rhyme, write it down. Yeah. Because he's got very memorable, and I don't know if he comes up with those on his own or he's got a group of people that help him with it. But that's something that he does that I will just say it's his giftedness. I don't know, but or maybe it's the Holy Spirit, but he has a way. I don't see how he does it. I just look at Diane sometimes and just think, man, he pulled that one out of the hat. That's amazing. I've never thought about that. So.
And he is remarkable. He is the pastor up at Life Church in Cookeville. And the reason why we found him is because our children went to school out there, and that's when I discovered him. And just phenomenal. I've pretty much heard everything he's done. I've listened to all of his old archive stuff, and I've learned so much from him. And yeah, I knew you listened to him. I knew you had to.
I want to brag on my boys for a minute.
Okay.
So I've got 3 kids, a boy, a girl, and a boy. So the oldest and the youngest are both at Tennessee Tech. So the oldest is kind of a non-traditional student. He went to Harding for a while, then he worked for a while as he sort of decided what he wanted to do, and then he went back to Tech. And very proud of him. He has basically made the decision to pay for a school as he goes. So he's getting it wrapped up, but he's non-traditional student, so he's a little bit older. Our youngest is a sophomore. They live together, which is kind of cool, and because there's a 7-year difference between, and I love that.
Yeah, I think that's
great. They're brothers, right?
Yeah.
So they're fighting 1 minute, but they'll fight for each other to the end, right?
Right.
And so Diane said yesterday, she said that she had heard from the oldest, and he had put, I think it was the oldest, so had put a roast in like the crock pot or something with potatoes and carrots and everything. So he had gotten up early and put a roast on and went to church, and they were at church, the two of them together. And I just thought, it just makes you proud, because you think of your college age, especially boys, you think they're at church when we come and visit them, right? And I mean, and I just think that's so cool, because they love what Bobby Davis has to say. He's just he really he brings a lot of common sense, and he's very I think he's very theologically sound. He's not sophisticated for the people who like high church, or who want the guy with a PhD who uses big words that you have to look up. He's not that guy. But you know what? He knows who he is, and he knows his audience, and he's at the top of the bell curve, right? He's speaking to a large group of people who want truth, and he's not afraid to speak it. And especially some of the things that he said yesterday at the beginning, it's not truth that people want to hear.
No.
And not in today's world. And he's absolutely right. We've upended, 2,000, 3,000 years of teaching to bow before the altar of popular culture. He didn't say it that way, but that's where we are. We don't want to hurt, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings unless you're on the left and you disagree with me, in which case we can.
Oh, then you just bash it.
Sorry for any of the leftists listening, but I get tired of being accused of being a hater.
Yeah.
When the most hateful things that I get are from the far left that are upset that I don't agree with them. So
the thing that they just don't want to see is, I don't have to agree with you to love you. And I have so many friends that are on the opposite side of me on so many things, the gender stuff, the homosexuality. I've got dear friends that live that life, and they know I love them. I love them, but I'm not going to say that that's okay in God's eyes. I just say, I can't, I don't even know where to start.
Here's what bothers me about it is that, gender dysphoria is nothing new. You've talked about it in your book. You've talked about it in your upbringing, and feeling like you wanted to be a boy, and that's nothing new. And what'd you do? You grew out of it, right?
I grew out of being a tomboy. I'm still a tomboy, for heaven's sakes.
But you made the comment one time. You just said, I wouldn't trade anything for being a wife and a mother and a woman. And but you didn't always feel that way, and you grew out of it. Well, some people don't grow out of it, and I get that. It's a very, 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 very small percentage of the population that struggle with that, past a certain age. So why in the world the left, this cult of transgenderism has co-opted this term, gender affirming care? Now, let me tell you, you would think, so this is something that's well established, well known, been in the DSM, for years, the diagnostic manual of mental disorders, or whatever they call it today. They probably got a more politically correct name for it, but so for years it's been around. It's been considered treatable. It's been considered you can have successful outcomes due to therapy. The reality of it is most people just grow out of it. It's just a phase that people have in their life. And of course, for any child going through that can be a very traumatic thing. I mean, I don't know what your trauma was like as you dealt with that, but I don't want to minimize that. But affirming care, to me, ought to be counseling, not surgery. And we listened to these people who testified, this one woman said, I had perfectly healthy breast removed. And she said, when I started, and it all goes back, for many of these people, if we look at the cult of transgenderism and why it suddenly exploded, parents, do not let your kids be on social media.
Amen.
This thing of letting 8-year-olds be on Tumblr.
It's insane.
That's where Tumblr, the cult of transgenderism, is the domain of Tumblr, or is in the domain of Tumblr. And so, she was on Tumblr and she started getting all this information. And so she ended up doing this, and then she regretted it later. And I was sitting there in committee and I just wanted to cry. And she was just saying, this ruined me. Listen to me. Listen to my voice. Look at my shoulders. Look at, all of these chemicals that I put in my body that have forever changed me. It's not reversible damage. It is, Abigail Schreier is the title of her book, The Irreversible Damage, the cult of transgenderism that's seducing our young people. That title says it all.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
And we're talking with Senator Kerry Roberts, and I do apologize for not looking at my text to specify. And Janet is even texting me, or she's on here going, he texted you, he'll be there in a minute, and I didn't even see that. I'm just
fine.
like,
I just felt that having sat in your seat and having to stall for somebody to show up.
But no,
and I knew that you broadcast from your phone, so I wanted to text you early before you were had your phone on the tripod and couldn't see it, but no, we'll laugh about it later.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm sorry I couldn't go. I was driving and I couldn't call. I didn't have my earpods in.
We had tried the phone lines before, and
you said that phone number way too fast for me. You just need to do 6 1 5.
But we're so glad you're in studio with us, and so people don't have to listen to me ramble on. But I am going to pause for a minute.
It was good rambling.
Oh, well, thank you very much, telling you to get to church. Well, and I knew you had watched Bobby Davis. I knew. His associate pastor, Jason Ball, that was with him for years, is at the Centerpoint Church in Hendersonville. So that's another one you might want to
I didn't get the connection that's.
Yeah,
Jason was
the associate pastor or the youth pastor there at, and that's why I started listening to him, is just because I followed him some at Life Church.
I know you need a break, but I want to make one comment.
Yep.
You know what I love about Life Church?
What?
They roll up their sleeves and they get to work and they serve the community.
I'm going to tell you.
I have never seen a church so active in rolling up their sleeves and doing things for people.
Uno? The Uno.
Duo.
Yeah, Uno.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Do unto others. Do unto others. The Duo ministry.
Yeah.
And they're taking
haircuts,
buses out.
dental, food.
Doing dental and optical. The things we do down in Mexico,
they're
doing.
Do
and I just think that needs to go across the globe. I mean, that needs to go across the country. And it's such a great example. I love that congregation, what they're doing. And again, Bobby, he's so humble, because anytime you've got one person that feels like, okay, it's people are following me instead of Jesus, and he constantly reminds you of that. And he's just, he apologizes, I think, for being able to connect with you, because he wants you to connect with these other people. And some just aren't as good at sharing the message as he is.
Oh,
and he's just very anointed. Yeah. And when you come across somebody like that, you just want to kind of
Cornerstone at kind of when Maury Davis, no relation to Bobby Davis, but when he was there, I always remembered a comment that Maury Davis said. He was talking about, this was at one of they had a rodeo. Do you remember this at 4th of July one year?
I know they've been on kinds of things. I never really followed
First time I ever went there, and I was amazed, because they took their auditorium and they brought in truckloads of dirt, and they had a sanctioned rodeo to get people to come to church.
How wild.
On 4th of July. I mean, they would have this, the Christmas thing and this and that and the other, just to get people who wouldn't normally come to church. Anyway, the comment that he made when he got up to speak was, he said, a lot of pastors want to see a full parking lot of Mercedes, BMWs, things like that. He said, man, I pulled in and I saw pickup trucks and gun racks, and he said, I love it. That's the kind of church I want. and I think it's like probably what you see a lot with Bobby. With Bobby is he's just somebody that so many people can can relate to.
And they're in the prisons, like amazing,
Yes, yeah.
amazing work that they're doing in the prisons. And I've mentioned to some people, I'm like, man, have y'all thought about getting this Bobby Davis Life Church in there, because he's a former addict and I think he could really speak. Well, we're doing this and we're doing that, and they want to guard what they're doing rather than what's working.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just really encourage people, if we've got somebody like him that's changing lives, why can't we get him into every prison? Why can't we get him into every prison? Because he is speaking truth. I have so many people because of Celebrate Recovery that are going through addiction, and I'm just like, have you discovered Bobby Davis? Go and listen to him, because I think he will help you if you're in addiction, because he went through it. Yeah. And I just cannot say enough about that. But let me pause and do my break. You haven't gotten Cumberland Connect yet, have you?
I wish.
But you're on the list, right?
Yeah, about a year from now.
Yeah.
And just, hey, for all the people that think that if you're an elected official or a state senator, you get all the breaks. No, I'm having to wait.
Yeah,
so
just like everybody else.
Almost everybody else in Robertson County is going to have it before I do. I'm literally, our stretch of road is literally last on the list. And
it's because y'all have other options, I think, is more than
not
it.
really.
They're
I've got AT&T at 12 megs. Well, in defense of AT&T, it's because we're on legacy copper. That's why. Because you're only, are you a mile from here?
Like 2
miles. Yeah.
2 miles.
So the problem is we're close enough to downtown Springfield and that switching station that we're just on the legacy copper pair. So our internet, it's amazing at all that we've had what we've had.
Right.
But there are people that are obviously, I don't want to talk down AT&T, because a lot of people have fiber.
Sure. Yeah.
And by the way, I think probably Cumberland Connect's probably built on AT&T back, but I don't know that for a fact. But AT&T's got fiber all throughout America that a lot of other people connect to, and they've got kind of the primary infrastructure. So, but it's because we're close to downtown. Everything, the way the money was funded, you're supposed to go to the least served area and work your way to the most served. And you get these people like us that are in the gray area. We're not in downtown Springfield, so we don't have fiber, but we're not far enough out in the country that we're the first ones that got it. So they're working their way in. So if you look at the map, we're in like the last phase.
Well, see, and I just got it. I just got it first of the year, and it's wonderful. Are you kidding? It's fabulous.
Yeah. What do you pay for it?
$80.
And it's like
I get a gig. I got a gig and unlimited everything.
Wow.
And I was paying $65 for what I had with AT&T, and I had like a 3.5 upload speed, and now I have 600.
Wow.
It's insane. My engineer, he came home last weekend, and first thing he did is walk in the door and do my speed testing. He goes, oh my goodness. And of course, my children.
Don't you wish you had that when you were doing? Did you phone in or internet when you were doing
had a
traffic?
loop line? We had a loop line that worked very well, and the things that we did.
I don't know what that means. What's a loop line?
A loop line, I don't really understand. I just know that people that understand technology, we broadcast down a loop line, and it's a studio line, and it sounded great, and that's what a lot of people still were using really until the fiber came in, and so we had good service when we were running the roofing company. And I was doing traffic. AT&T, they were on top of it with us, and they served us very, very well. And so, but once we came just a regular customer and all those things ended, it just it was not good. But,
so this was a real legislative battle.
I know.
So for Cumberland Electric to be able to do this required a legislative change to let our electrical co-ops be in the broadband internet business. And so this bill was proposed for several years before it finally passed. And of course the state put money into it, the federal government put money into it, and then so Cumberland Electric, CEMC, as well as Meriwether Lewis and our other electrical co-ops in Middle Tennessee were all poised and ready to go when it finally was signed into law. And they've just done a great job of rolling it out, and a great product. And your electrical co-op, we own it, right? And I know sometimes people will complain about it. I get complaints every now and then, and somebody doesn't agree with something that's going on. But hey, if you're a CEMC customer, you get to vote on who the board of directors is and who governs this thing. And if you've not been to their annual meeting or anything like that, get involved. That's a you go vote on election day, but this is a different election. They've got it set as very well publicized. And of course their magazine that they do is so good, right? And you get that every month, and it gives you the update on when the elections are and who your board is. And they're a, we forget sometimes they're a co-op. They're not a corporation, and we own them, and they work for our benefit. And if you go to different parts of the country or even different parts of the state, they pay a whole lot more for electricity than we do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, and we'll just quickly say 1-800-987-2362, 1-800-987-2362, or CumberlandConnect.org, and you can check out the Affordable Connectivity Program. You may receive up to $30 per month to help you pay for broadband services. Outstanding sponsor here at One Street Over. So when you contact them, tell them thank you and that U-Turn sent you. And I have a question kind of piggybacking on that. Governor Bill Lee, whenever he was on the campaign trail, this was something he was really pushing for. Had it happened before he got into office, or is this something that he pushed for? Because I was always under the assumption that it kind of happened once he got into office, or was it already moving?
Oh, gosh, you're going to ask me a timing question.
Yeah, I'll ask you later, but
I'm going to say,
curious.
I think, there's been a couple of steps in this, and I think it started in the Haslam administration.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah, Janice Bowling had the bill for years. It kind of became a joke that every time she, okay, so this is a joke. Please take it as a joke. It's nothing else. But we would joke about Janice would make for a good drinking game every time she brings up broadband internet,
funny.
Because she would work it into, fiber to the premises was her little buzzword.
That's right.
And so now that we got that bill passed, the new one is medical cannabis, and so she's the one that keeps pushing that bill. So I love Janice. Janice is. She's not afraid to take on the tough issues, but she is an unrelenting bulldog. She's going to push until she gets it.
Widow.
So she
Scripture.
Let me tell you, she kept beating on the door on rural broadband, and then finally, and you know what? When early on you're taking on Comcast, you're taking on AT&T,
that's a
you're
big
taking
lobby.
on Charter. I mean, you're taking on Dish. You had all these
yeah.
different people that were fighting it, and she never wavered. And it took several years, but I think the first one was actually in the Haslam administration, because it's now. I mean, we're now five. Probably years into it, probably.
Governor Lee talked a lot about it on the campaign trail.
Well,
because we were out there together, and
so the issue is that not to get into the weeds, but initially you just had to go with someone that was underserved. That didn't mean that they were not served. It meant they were underserved. So if they were below like 10 meg down or 12 meg down, they were or 20 or whatever it was, they were considered underserved. Well, you could go in and you could bump up the speed to that customer at a much lower infrastructure cost than going out into the far reaches of county that had nothing, and get to them, right? So that was the initial round of this didn't go to the places that nobody wanted to go. It kind of picked the low hanging fruit, and so we've done it in stages, and I'm just so sorry I can't say that off the top of my head.
Well, but no, don't worry.
I've had a brain hemorrhage. I've had a brain hemorrhage since then. Can I use that as an excuse?
I love it. But
I used to say I've slept since then, but now I say
I had a brain bleed.
Yeah, I had.
So, but we're talking with Senator Kerry Robertson. We're going to be out of time just and I've got to say thank you about the bus thing, and I know we don't need to spend a ton of time on that.
I'm good till 8 o'clock, by the way.
Oh, you're good till 8? Okay, good. I thought you were going to have to slide out of here, but my husband would get me if I didn't say thank you for you and Janet getting all that done in a time.
Well, we haven't done it.
Well, but it's not been voted on.
It's
yet,
not been
right?
voted on, and this is interesting. We got a phone call from Montgomery County, which I now represent part of Montgomery County, and they want to add something to the bill. This is interesting. They want to be able to do they're using technology, or want to use technology that allows them to scan the kids as they get on and off the bus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So stop and think about it. You're at the bus stop. Your kid doesn't get off the bus. Where's your kid? Okay. Well, maybe within a matter of 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, someone's going to be able to tell you where your kid is. But how long is that 5 or 10 or 15 minutes if you don't know where your third grader is?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's an eternity, right? So somehow, and I have no idea if the kids have cards. I have no idea if they have like a barcode on their backpack. I have no idea how it works. But the kid, when they can leave, they can scan the kid when they leave the school. They can scan them when they get on the bus. They can scan them when they get off the bus.
Oh,
and
wow.
so they can immediately tell the parent, when the door opens, I guess they can say, hey, little Johnny or Susie did not get on the bus today. And this also maybe helps the school bus driver know if he has a full roster or not. I don't know what all it does for him, but they felt like that they needed, that the existing prohibition prohibited them from having that device on the bus, because it is a device that the bus driver would be able to view and see. So, or maybe it's incorporated into the iPad that they want to mount, or whatever it is. So we were waiting for language to add that to it. And my only comment was, hey, that's fine with me unless it jeopardizes the bill, in which case we'll not run it as a separate bill. But that's why we've not gone ahead, and that was on the calendar for last week. But that's why we call it rolling. We move it back a week or two, waiting for that amendment.
Okay. And that's something else we were talking about, how when it got through, things that could be added to it for amendments, because now that that's gone to the place it is, they're like, well, we've got to do something about stop arm violations, because you got people blowing through stop arm whenever that
that's
sign
beyond
is
the
down.
scope. Yeah. So in
And it's beyond,
So in Tennessee, we're very narrow on what a bill can. You can't do the golden toilets like they do in Washington,
you can't
D.C.
add all that stuff
And
on.
by the way, that's nice that they've changed that in Washington. With if there's one reason for having Kevin McCarthy as speaker, it's that they have committed to not letting you throw all this stuff into the bills. It's the bill's going to be about one subject, and in Tennessee,
It's got to have a theme.
Yeah, and constitutional. In Tennessee, the Constitution says it can only be a bill can only be related to one subject, and that has to be identified in the title or the caption of the bill. And so it gets disregarded occasionally, but it's not supposed to be.
Right.
So,
but we need to talk to you about some stop arm stuff and some other things about buses and things that have come up, just because I think a lot of us just didn't even understand the process to even bring it. And that's what I was saying to the listeners before you came in, is it's at the end of January. And so if you've got something that you want to bring to them, get it together and get it to them so they can consider it for the next
and
session.
Here's the thing. You need to get it long before then.
Oh yeah, because that was a miracle that y'all got that through.
If you've got a legislative idea, the time to start reaching out is probably around Labor Day to start those conversations, because good legislation gets stakeholders together to discuss unforeseen consequences. Let me give you a great example: the abortion stuff. And
Right.
are you needing to take a break, or you want to go ahead
I've
and
got
talk
two
about
more
that?
breaks, but let's go ahead and talk about that, because I guess you've heard Omar Hamada's comments about how they need to change the wording in the bill, because I don't have it in front of me. Let me go see if I can pull it up. But Omar came in last week and spoke, and but go ahead and say what you were going to say.
So on tomorrow in Judiciary, we're going to be, and by the way, if someone is interested in hearing, reading, about all this stuff, or knowing exactly what we're doing, you can go to capital.tn.gov, and you can see the calendars, you can see the bills, you can see what's before us. So I'm going to capital.tn.gov right now, and it brings up the Tennessee General Assembly's website. I'm going to hit the menu, the little hamburger, and you can go to schedules and calendars is one way to get there. You can go to committees is another. So as soon as I hit schedules and calendars, it gives me this week, and I look at Tuesday, and I'm not sure how I get from Monday to Tuesday here. I'm on my phone, so it's a little bit
Things work better on the
Okay.
on
computer. Well, I'm going to go to committee, and I'm going to go to Senate, and I'm going to go to Judiciary, and maybe this will give me current committee calendar. And so on the Senate Judiciary Committee for tomorrow, the 28th, we've got a budget hearing for the TBI. We've got a budget hearing for the Administrative Office of the Courts. And then we've got a bill that's sponsored by Farrell Hale, who is over in Sumner County. and basically it amends our abortion law to allow abortions in the case of rape or incest of for the most part a child. I'm not going to try and summarize the bill, but let me explain this. So a few years ago, we passed what was called the trigger bill, and the trigger bill basically said if Roe versus Wade is ever overturned, abortion is outlawed in Tennessee, period. Okay, except for life of the mother. And at that time when the bill was passed, and I voted for that bill. I don't think, to be perfectly candid, I don't think anyone thought Roe versus Wade would be overturned.
Right.
So then Roe versus Wade gets overturned, and the trigger law goes into effect. And then you've got some people, and Laverne, this is really, really important. There are a lot of people who are pro-life, a whole lot of people who are pro-life, who are no abortion ever under any circumstance. But there are just as many, if not more, people who are pro-life who say, well, except for rape or incest. Okay? Now, it's real important for the people who say no, never, ever, ever, to realize that the people who say no, never, unless it's rape or incest, are not second-class citizens. We got to be real careful here when we talk about people who have strongly held positions. You know, there are a lot of people that go to church. They may be preachers, they may be elders, they may be deacons, they may be Bible class teachers, they may be nursery workers, they may be on their knees every day praying, who think it's okay if the law says there's an exception for rape or incest. So Farrell Hale, who is a Lipscomb University graduate, who is a long-time elder in the Church of Christ, has this bill that says if your 12-year-old granddaughter got raped and became pregnant, that within like 8 or 10 weeks she could have an abortion. And I'm just going to say, whether I agree with that or not, the criticism that he's getting for that is really it's disheartening. You know, the names that he's being called, or how he's being viewed. You know, we can all love the Lord and have different views on things. And now the question is, what's going to happen with that bill? I don't know if we're going to vote on it or not. I don't know if he's going to run it. It's close vote count, and I don't know what he's going to do.
I'm going to slide this over to you, and I've got to do my breaks because I've got 2 breaks, and we're the same as our time. This is what Omar brought in, and I'll let you look at that because that's not the issue. It's about changing the verbiage on some stuff. And while the senator looks at that, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk about my friends Barry and Rebecca Riches with the Exit Realty Garden Gate team, because if you need help in real estate, you need a team that understands all the nuances of it. They understand it from the buying and the selling perspective. Whenever we talked a little bit about marketing, and marketing is so important. Barry was a vice president of a marketing company, a media marketing company, for 17 years. So he comes to the table with an expertise that not many real estate companies have. He can make sure that if your property is not getting seen, if people are not paying any attention to it up online, maybe it needs new pictures, maybe it needs some videography on it, maybe it needs some drone footage or anything that might help people come to the table and take a real serious look at it. Rebecca's one of the first in the area to be a seniors real estate specialist. That illustrates that she's studying, she's staying up to date on everything that she needs to know to make sure your property is, that you are properly represented when you come to the table. If you want to connect with them, they specialize in Robertson County properties, but they also buy and sell in the surrounding counties and across the state line in Kentucky. You can connect with them at sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or buyrobertsoncounty.com, or give them a call at 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425. Always tell them U-Turn sent you, and we also want you to go by and see Corbin Creek Greenhouse. I'm just going to go ahead and do the other ad so he can take a good look at this piece by Omar. But Corbin Creek Greenhouse, Gibson Gardening Center, they are ready for you. You can go out and see them at 4920 Highway 161 or call them at 615-384-3185, whether it be for what you want to plant in your garden this year. You got to get your garden ready because we are on the cusp of spring. It is going to be here in a minute. And as Brian Pulley says, his best garden he had was last year, and he took every one of his bedding plants from Corbin Creek. And that will make the difference in your garden when you've got well-rooted plants, and it will just make for a wonderful harvest. Amy is an expert at what she does. She would love to talk to you and see you and help you with all the things going on in your garden, and also with CBD products that are Robertson County CBD products produced from the plants her brother Bill grows. You can go out and see them today. They are, again, in their winter hours, 10 to 4, Monday through Saturday, 1 to 4 on Sunday. They're at 4920 Highway 161, 615-384-3185. When you get by there, 615-384-3185. Please let them know U-Turn sent you. Okay, Senator Roberts, we're going to let you take us to the top of the hour here. And did you understand what Omar's point was?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And so that's actually the second bill that's on the calendar, the one by Briggs, and it clarifies some of the language that just didn't get contemplated on the trigger bill. And then we've got a bill by Hensley that says you can't use local governments, like Nashville said they were going to pay for their, city of Nashville said or Davidson County said they were going to pay for employees to go get an abortion out of state.
Out of state, yeah.
And then Akbari has a bill that says that it doesn't include the use of contraceptives, birth control, IUDs, and things like that. And then Lamar has a bill that is called the Fundamental Right to Reproductive Health Care Act. Yeager has a bill that
so there's a lot going on with the abortion bill.
Yeah, addresses criminal stuff. And so, so this is our what we call our abortion calendar. So in other words, sometimes we group bills by their topic and hear them all at the same time.
Okay.
And that's going to be on Tuesday at Judiciary, 3 p.m. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody. I just want to say, one thing I've learned is, and you've heard me say this, ideology doesn't need to be a test of friendship. You know what? You can agree. You may disagree with Senator Hale on his bill, but you know what? If you're on the right side of things, you probably agree with him 99 times out of 100. And let's not damage our relationships because it's so easy to be single issue for some people and not see the larger picture. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the bill's going to be heard. I don't know if he's going to run it. I don't know if we're going to end up voting on it. And I don't know if it's going to be amended. And, people call me and say, how are you going to vote on such and such bill? And, the first thing I do is I say, well, give me a final bill that I can read first. Yeah. Because otherwise you're asking me, you're asking me to say what I'm going to do before I've read something. Right. And those changes can be made all the way up to committee at times. They ought not to be, but sometimes that's the case. So, in any event, stay tuned. It's going to be
a wild week.
Yeah, more to that. It's going to be a crazy week. But this is for me, this is probably the busiest week, and it's pretty much all downhill after here. Not downhill in a bad way, but it starts to get easier. So.
Well, and I'll just say we'll close with this. Pray for your leadership, guys. Pray for the senator. Pray for Representative Kumar. All those that are representing our county here in Robertson County, and all those who represent us anywhere. Because I believe there are a lot of very godly people trying to do the best they know how to do. Pray for them. Pray for them.
Hey, wisdom
and that's always right.
is always needed. Prayers are always appreciated. And don't underestimate the fact that things are not always what you think they are. Yeah. And there's a lot of agonizing over some of these bills to do the right thing because they can have far-reaching consequences. And part of the agony sometimes just starts with, do we even need a law that does whatever it is, or should we just let people use their own judgment or make up their own mind? And it's tough sometimes to know what to do. Hey, thank you for having me. Sorry for miscommunication.
No, I'm sorry
here.
I'll check my text from now on your day.
Well, hey, you're very kind to have me, and I'm glad that we've fallen into this routine.
Bruce Morris
Other than Bobby
had
Davis, we
President
talked about new
Stewart
topics
Hoodie's.
today, so that's good.
Exactly.
Bobby Davis is always worth talking
Very
about. so.
good. All right, and we'll get back to the show here. Thank you, Senator Roberts, and thank you guys for joining us tomorrow. We'll have Billy Vogel on 1100 WSGI. God bless.